Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you this morning? Hope you're doing great. There's goodness in your day. Hello. If you hear some clunking and banging this morning, it is there's all manner of things going on. If you don't know, we are in the midst of a lot of work here in the church, and so some of that is going on in our over in the garden, and the church is being cared for and repointed and helped fasten back together. There's also a bunch of work going on next door to the church, which is really exciting, or next door to the church at the school, which is looking terrific and kind of exciting as well. There's also below us is right now we have generous donations from Blount Soup that happens every month, and we are a part of distributing that. That it goes to some place it goes to people in need throughout the city, different organizations and different residential homes and stuff like that. So they're down there sorting through and delivering soup to our veteran partners, to some of the residential homes, like all throughout the city, all manner of people that get soup through our program. So it's pretty cool. It's kind of so if you hear clanking and banging, no, it is the work of God that's happening even as we speak. Hey, Vicki, good morning to you. Karen, glad you're here. Hope you're doing great on this gray day. Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. All right, a little mug up this morning, little sailboats. You're doing great. So, all right, friends, let's get going this morning. It is the 10th day of September here at 11:11, and I'm glad you're part of it and glad you're with us, and know that you will be prayed for today, because I always say a prayer for everybody who might hear my voice or be a part of this journey, whether it's live or whether you're catching it later in the day or whether you're just discovering this little offering. Welcome. That there is a very famous quotation of scripture, which is often a misquotation. And I really and I had kind of a neat little encouragement this morning, and so it is from Paul's letter to the church in Philippi, and it is this that you may well have heard it. It is that I can do all this through him who gives me strength. I can do all things through him who gives me. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And I thought of it this morning because I was going into Sam's Bakery. If you're in Fall River, Fall River, Sam's Bakery is iconic. I was picking up I was going from where we have we do Laundry Love, and kind of supporting some of that and checking on them. And I was on my way to a United Way meeting, and so I was just right in between. So I stopped into Sam's and grabbed some meat pies for the United Way meeting. Nothing good happens on low blood sugar, so it's always a good idea to have snacks. I'm sure it says that in the gospel somewhere. So, grabbing some meat. And I went in, and there's this kind of young woman waiting, and she had a T-shirt on, and it had this quote on it: I can do this through him. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. I can do all this through him who gives me strength, Philippians 4:13. And above it, in big letters, it said, move forward and trust God. And I just loved that. And I loved it because a lot of times this quotation is misunderstood. A lot of it is about misunderstanding, I think. But her little synopsis, her little exegesis of it, her little explanation of move forward and trust God, I actually really liked. And so I said, hey, I love your shirt. She said, oh yeah, I made it. I was like, She said, yeah, I have a Cricut. I made this shirt and showed it off to me. I was like, that's awesome. Have a great day. So it was just a wonderful little moment. And so if you see her around town, a little mustard shirt, it's awesome. It's a great shirt. And so I wanted to spend just a moment of we often hear it of like it often gets a little mistranslated too. You'll often hear it, I can do all things through him who gives me strength. But the real translation should be, I can do all this, all these things is really what it should say, through him who strengthens me. Because Paul is actually referring to a very specific thing that he's talking about in the verse before. So he's not talking about, I can sprout wings and fly around the room if I have enough faith. I can jump off of buildings and not be hurt if I have faith. Like, that's not what he's saying. That God will give me enough strength to do things that's not what he's saying. He said, I can do this through him. So what's the all this that he's talking about? And he's talking about that the all this is this. He says, I have learned the secret of being content in every situation, whether fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. That's the all this, is to be content in any situation. That's the all this. And if you think about life, you think about the life particularly that we're contending with right now, I was driving from Providence the other day, and there were protesters out protesting, and I'm all for people expressing themselves and using your First Amendment rights and being passionate about the things you're passionate about, but that there's also a risk in that of our contentment, our security in God, our ability to trust God being at issue. Because if we put ourselves in this position when we say, I can't be happy unless, I can't be content unless this thing is changed. If Paul were to use that rubric, I can't be content in Christ. I can't be content in all the things that God has given us. I can't come to the Lord's table and feast of joy and goodness and peace and all of the fruits of the Spirit. I can't take those things in unless something else is fit. Unless things are fixed, then you're missing the very richness and beauty of what the gospel was here to do. It was here to bring us joy. It was here to bring us contentment. It is the good news that it really is okay, and God really does have it. And God really does hold us in the palm of our hand. And so, but that doesn't mean there aren't things to do in the world. There was no more greater advocate. There was no more greater warrior for Christ than Paul himself. There was no greater worker in the vineyard to bring and spread the good news, to tell people about what he had experienced and encountered in numerous times, even to death, a couple of times. I'm actually of the opinion, not everybody has this opinion, but I'm actually of the opinion that Paul actually did die and was resurrected, or at least was miraculously healed from death's door. Like that there is actually that and I can make the biblical case for it. I don't need to right now, but to say that Paul had experienced the very worst of the worst, and in many ways the very best of the best, and yet but to be content in both. And I think that's really what God gives us in the resurrection and in this invitation to the gospel, that I can do all this, I can do that through him who gives me strength. And I really love what what she had put on her shirt, because that was, again, she made that shirt and she put which said, move forward and trust God. Because that's it. That we're not called to just go to a mountaintop and abandon the world. We're not called to not deal with the ills of the world. We're not called to maybe stand out and protest, or we're not called to not to engage the things of the world. But we are not. But that should never, ever affect our trust in God. And if it is affecting our trust in God, that's the thing we need to attend to long before we get to the problem of the world. We need to work through our own dissatisfaction. The great evangelist Dwight Moody used to tell this story, and I think it makes this point better than anything. He said, years ago, there's this guy by the name of Russell Conwell, and he was told of an ancient Persian. His name was Ali Hafed, and so Ali Hafed, he owned a really large farm. There's this big farm with orchards and green fields and gardens, and he was rich and he was wealthy and contented. He had all of his material needs met. He really had just and this on this beautiful plot of land. And one day, this traveler from the east came and told the farmer all about diamonds. He'd never really encountered diamonds before, but he told him all about diamonds. And he told about how valuable they were and how much they sparkled and how they were the very thing that just to have a few diamonds in your hand would be worth more than all of his whole farm. And Ali Hafed went to bed that night a poor man, because with all of the wealth that he had, all the stuff around him, he just dreamed of owning a diamond mine. He'd gotten this bug that he'd think if he just had diamonds, that would be the thing to have. And so he sold his farm and he began to search the world. Like, he started to research diamonds. He started to search the world for these rare stones wherever he went. He traveled all over. After having sold his farm, he spent all the money that he had, and he was poor and he was broken. He defeated. He never found diamonds, and finally he ended his own life. And one day, that the man who had bought his farm, who had purchased Ali Hafed's farm, brought his camel to drink in this brook that ran through it. And he saw in the water of the brook a little sparkle, a little flash of light in the sands. And he brushed away the sands and he found a diamond. He pulled out a stone, and that stone reflected the hues of the rainbow. And that man discovered what was called the diamond mine of Golconda, which at the time became the greatest diamond mine in the world, the most significant mine find in all of history. Had Ali Hafed remained at home and dug in his own garden, then instead of death, as a stranger in a strange land, broken and discontented, he would have had acres of diamonds. And I think this very real and very live story is what we're called to do. I think it's what that beautiful T-shirt I saw this morning actually calls us to. That what Paul has figured out, what Paul's secret is. I have learned the secret. And the secret is dig in your own garden. The secret is, because some days you will get dirt. But some days you will get diamonds. And the message of the shirt that is to move forward and to trust God, to keep digging in our garden, to keep tending that which God has given us in our world, to keep tending the midst, that which is in our midst, that which is in our grasp, that which is right before us, to keep tending that, to keep digging at it, to move forward and to trust God in it in all ways. And as we do, yes, some days we will get dirt. Some days it will not seem enough, but there will be some days in which we will find diamonds. St. Augustine said, "Love God and do what you will." Friends, wherever you are, I hope today you know the love of God. I hope that God comes to you and reveals himself the way he revealed himself to me this morning in the T-shirt of a lady getting meat pies at Sam's, and that you might hear the message of Paul from across the void of time, that I can do all this. I can be contented in any situation, whether fed or hungry, whether living or in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Peace and grace to you, my friends. I hope you have a great day, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.